Okay.
Okay. So on her testing today, the things that we did directly with her and, combined with your parent kind of report information, her nonverbal skills, so things when words aren't required and motions aren't required, she did quite well. So she performed in the low average range on like a game. We did like a little picture matching game, so how she understands conceptual relationships without even having to talk to her. And then her receptive language skills, so how well she understands what we tell her, came out just like 1 point below the average range. So really close to where we would expect it to be. Low average, but looking good. Where she performed poorly was when motor skills needed to be used and where expressive speech needed to be used. So if we take into account all of her word approximations, she is still below average for her speech. So that's called an expressive language delay, just meaning that she has fewer words than we would expect her to do, and she's doing less things with those words. So I would consider all of her phrases right now to be what I would call rote phrases, meaning that there are words that are commonly chunked together, like I want, right there, as opposed to being a true phrase, which I think of as being a noun and a verb combining together, like I want milk or go get ball. So I would consider to have no real spontaneous phrase right now, all
Let her have them.
single words.
No.
And it looks sort of like blueberries.
And you love blueberries.
All single words and then rote phrases. So that's the expressive language delay. But she has another thing on top of that, which is what we call a speech sound disorder, which I think is even more significantly impairing for her at this point, which is that she is making a lot of sound errors, and she's making a variety of sound errors. She is doing some sound substitution where she will substitute one sound for another within a word, but she also drops sounds from words, and she drops them from a variety of areas. So she drops from the middle, she drops from the beginning, and she drops from the end. So her sound, she makes a variety of sound errors and different sound errors within words. So that's what we would call a speech sound disorder. So really her language delay are those two things kind of superimposed on each other. So the expressive language delay and a significant speech sound disorder on top of that too. In addition, she does have what we would call a coordination disorder. She does have some really significant concerns with her fine motor skills, both kind of what you're reporting and what we can see her today, only doing spontaneous scribbling. Trying to spin me. Spontaneous scribbling right now, as opposed to actually trying to like make some forms or copy lines, as well as some of her gross motor skills, like being able to jump with both feet off the floor.
Standing with one leg up.
Yeah, exactly. So those are the primary diagnoses that we have for her are expressive language disorder, speech sound disorder, and coordination disorder. I don't see anything going on here like an autism spectrum disorder at all. Her social skills were really well intact today. She does beautiful, what we call 3-point
This is the loud voice.
We heard a little bit earlier too. She has some pretend play skills that she showed us today. She's really working hard to communicate even when she doesn't have the words to do that. She uses gestures. She took a little airplane card and made it fly. So she's trying to communicate with us. It's just that those verbal skills are limited right now. Intellectual disability doesn't seem to be. So she's too young to diagnose ADHD. She certainly has some risk factors.
I know young kids are.
Yeah, what's normal for attention span in a child Amelia's age is pretty broad, and as they get older, that range kind of narrows as to what we would consider to be typical or normal. I prefer, unless it is like they won't sit still even for a second, prefer not to diagnose ADHD in a child who hasn't been through at least one full year of kindergarten. So we just want to make sure that we give her that chance.
They diagnose them super early. Yeah.
Right. So usually that's more closer to age 6 is when we start thinking about it more seriously. On her behavioral assessment, that was the only area where you kind of said, hey, maybe something's going on here about the tantrums, aggression, and those types of things. In terms of some of the other behaviors that you're endorsing, like things that are kind of odd or maybe unusual, like the chewing and sometimes grinding teeth. Sometimes we don't know exactly why those things are happening, but they do tend to occur more commonly in kids with a history of language delay. So more of that like sensory issues, things we'll just see a little bit more in kids like Amelia. So I want to pause for a second and just ask what questions you have for me just about that piece, like diagnoses and.
Talk to us about the two main points that you mentioned that are layered on top of each other. Are they common? Is it something that we can work on to improve? Will she grow out of it?
Yes, those are tough questions. First, I will say that expressive language delay is the most common delay that kids have. So expressive language delays are relatively common. So are speech sound disorders are relatively common. It gets to be when you combine those two things together that it's not that it's not, it's fairly common, but then we think about severity. And I do think her speech sound disorder is fairly severe at this point. And it's really impacting her intelligibility. I would like, as part of this appointment, and you follow up with our speech language pathologist who works here. I'm going to actually put you on as your next available appointment to dig even deeper specifically into the speech sound disorder part. So in terms of, go ahead.
No, you.
In terms of long-term kind of outcomes, so what do we expect for kids like Amelia? The best predictor of where kids are going to go is not where they start, but their trajectory. So right now I have a little bit of information. Right now, I have a little bit of anecdotal information about what her trajectory is, but I haven't actually seen it. And so that's why we like to follow kids over time, because once I can start tracking where she's at with points, then I'll be able to tell you a little bit more refined.
No.
A little bit more refined about where I think she's going.
It's her turn. She's talking. Are you trying to be the teacher?
Are you trying to be the one? Yeah, you're awful cute. In terms of the speech sound disorder, those are things that sometimes kids struggle with, even if they catch up with some of the actual number of words they're saying. Sometimes you'd still notice that more long term. We don't really know what the severity is, though. Sometimes you'll see kids or even adults who maybe say instead of ch. So that's sort of an example of sort of a persistent speech sound error that lasted until adulthood. What exactly that's going to look like for Amelia right now, it's impossible for us to predict.
Is she not hearing the words the same way we're hearing them?
So as long as she's had her hearing evaluated, there's no reason to think that there's no reason for us to believe that it is related to that. Sometimes kids have motor planning disorders that can affect, especially speech sound.
They never checked her hearing
after the tubes,
but she goes in August.
Okay.
To get a hearing check again.
Okay, good. So at that hearing check, everything is coming out normal hearing. We don't have any reason to think that she's not hearing the sounds appropriately. Does she have to go potty?
Do you want to go potty?
She didn't have to last time. It was
This is the thing.
dry.
It's a.
We like the steps of washing
yes.
our hands.
This is a ploy to get out of the room.
Oh yeah, I know. She's been wanting to get out of here forever.
Okay, here, come here.
So sometimes kids do have motor planning disorders. So, and that can be something, and she does have some other motor issues going on here. So that's something that's a possibility for her. That's something a speech therapist will typically diagnose if they think it's a motor planning type disorder. She doesn't have anything about her language that makes me say red flag. Absolutely, I think this is, and typically when it's a motor planning disorder, we call it apraxia of speech.
Yep, I've looked into apraxia.
There's nothing that's red flag throwing me up right now thinking this is absolutely apraxia of speech, but I'll have our speech therapist weigh in on that too. Apraxia of speech is extremely rare. So the chances that that's what it is are very, very, very low.
Is this a genetic issue, or is this an environmental issue? Is it something that we can adjust? I mean, is it the way we're speaking, or what little steps can we do at home to? We're going to get in the car and we're going to drive home and we're going to say, well, what do you think? And she's going to say, I don't know, what do you think? And then we're going to talk about it. What direction should we start trying to educate ourselves in?
So I'll give you a handout with some online resources that you can access that are good research-based resources, because sometimes you can fall down the hole of the internet, and I don't want that to happen to you. And so good resources about things you can do at home. I would make sure with her speech therapist, one thing we're definitely going to recommend is she needs to be getting more than one session of speech therapy a week. Absolutely, no question. I would say from the school system, a minimum of 2. If they can offer 3, even better. If you can access it privately as well, there's CDC.
I know there's a place in Lewisburg that I looked into that they do speech and
do you not do that here?
Stuff.
We don't do ongoing speech therapy here, but we will do additional evaluation to help make recommendations.
I know that there's a private place here in Lewisburg, I think.
There's Kids Work here in Lewisburg, and then there's CDC up in Williamsport as well that also offers additional speech therapy for her. Sorry, go ahead. We didn't get a question. Okay. So those are both options. They do typically have wait lists, so I would go ahead. My number one thing would be, if that's something that's feasible for your family, to go ahead and get yourself on wait lists.
Okay, my question now.
Yes.
Is speech therapy like having a math tutor? Can I hire a private speech therapist to come to the house and?
So I haven't had anyone ask me that before. So and I'll ask our speech therapist before we leave
I don't
if
know
there's
if it's
a way
something
to.
people do on the side or if it has to be done through a medical center.
They're licensed through the state, and I
Okay.
believe that there are some speech therapists who open their own private practice. So I
Yeah.
imagine that there are some around who might be looking.
Uh-huh.
I'm not sure. The other option would be what I've had families do in the past is find. So speech language therapists need a master's degree and they need hours to get there, and so we could look and see if there were any like college students in the
Training.
area
Yeah.
who were getting their graduate degree in speech therapy who might want to work with Amelia a little bit on the side. In terms of kind of in genetic environmental, we do know that these things do tend to run in families, although they don't always manifest in the same way in families. So sometimes we'll see, kids with language delay just in other family members, even extended family members. There were just some kinds of delays of varying severity. So in environmental wise, it's nothing that anybody did at all in this history that caused this to happen at all. In terms of what to be doing now, I have the feeling that you guys are doing a lot of the right things. So, narrating her play, using as much of a language-rich environment as you can. Trying to, if you know that she has the language, trying to request her to give that language. So not predicting everything that she needs all the time. Like
not
actually,
doing it for her.
right, not doing it for her. If you know that she has the skill or it's an emerging skill, request her to do it. I would also talk to her current speech therapist, and especially if she gets a second speech therapist, to make sure that all of you are communicating about what's being worked on, so that you can help support whatever they're doing at home and bolster that skill up too with how they're working on it.
So, good question off the top of my head. We're going to leave here. What's going to happen next?
So on your way out the door, you're going to make your next appointment to come back and meet with our speech therapist.
Okay.
And you'll also make an appointment to follow up with me. My next appointment will be in about 6 months, just to kind of see kind of that progression, how things are going. What I would like you to do in the interim is to think about private speech therapy.
Okay.
I'm going to write a report, and as is Monisa, we're going to compile everything together and send it out to you in the mail. You should share it with the school system and with anybody else who becomes involved in her
The
care.
place you're talking down in Lewisburg, I said about that, they do speech therapy.
Yeah.
To get in there, do I have to have a referral?
So typically you get on the waiting list, and then once you're ready, then you can just call our office and we'll fax the referral over.
Okay.
So you get on the waiting list first.
I have a friend that went to school with and she works there, and I thought that would be a good place too.
Yep, those are both options for her. So if you kind of have a contact at Kids Work, that can be helpful sometimes to get in. They also offer it in the Geisinger main campus in Danville. We're happy to put that one. You'll need a referral now, so if you want us to put that referral in, I'm happy to put that referral in today, and they'll call you. But that is also a wait list, like many of the services in the area are.
I'm sorry, I don't know if you already did. You guys don't offer the speech therapy.
Not the ongoing therapy, but I would like you to meet with our speech therapist, who just has a good eye, I think, for these types of.
Well, will she have a session or an appointment with him?
Yes,
Or her?
yep, she'll have a session. You'll book it on the way out. It's usually about a 2-hour visit with the speech therapist.
Is there any,
Before we leave, we'll go.
you as a doctor, you do this all of the time. What is the main suggestion that you give us, or what is the question that you wish people would ask more that they don't, or
That is a tough question.
how can I be more proactive for her? Or,
I don't think there's any question that I think I wish people would ask more, because most people ask the right question, which is, what do we want to do next? Right? What are we doing now? And you guys have already started that, and I think that all that needs to change is we just need to ramp that up to the next level. Oh, and that reminds me, actually, we've been talking a lot about her speech, but I am concerned about these motor skills too. And so I would like her early intervention providers to do a formal occupational evaluation for her as well, to see if that's something that they could possibly add on for her services. Typically, occupational therapy is about 1 time a week, and that's typically all right.
Okay. Well, there must be things that we could do at home when it comes to occupational therapy.
Sure. So exposure to any kind of drawing, crayons, those types of materials. Some
But
kids,
even like
Play-Doh.
just making a straight line.
Yep. So
She just doesn't do
Well, that too,
straight
and
lines.
she will, and she'll, as soon as you try to like direct her into doing some kind of
Sure.
like that, she
Wanna
loses it.
And some of the issues that you talk about seeing with her with attention might be frustration.
Yeah.
With that is a really difficult task. So she
Yes.
won't sit long with the scissors. She won't sit long with the coloring. It
Yeah.
might be really hard for her, and so boom, we're done.
It's
That's
me.
about all I can do.
Yeah.
So that's why
Okay.
that's why the formal occupational therapist is good, because they're there not just to do that, but also to work with her behaviorally on tolerating those things. But at home, having little things like this that she has to really pick up, and hand-based activities that she has to work on.
And last question.
Am I going to the restroom now?
Oh, I apologize.
No, you're right with that.
So you want to head right to the left of the nurse's station here, and the door, yes, it's on your right.
Thank you.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Well, just a couple of last questions, and you already went over them once, but I want to ask again.
That's fine.
Is she just not able to, you said that she's probably hearing the whole word, but is she not able to, well, obviously she's not able to articulate it.
Yeah.
But it's not that she can't hear the right word, it's that she just can't form those words.
So, well, we probably need that August 2nd audiology
Yeah.
appointment to confirm that
Yeah.
she is hearing them okay. But yes,
Yeah.
after that, if it's not a motor planning disorder, sometimes we don't know specifically why she's not forming those words correctly.
Uh-huh.
And some speech sound errors are very typical in kids, like saying wabbit for rabbit is really normal up
Yeah.
until about your age 4. So it's something that a lot of kids just progress developmentally out of it very naturally, and
Yeah.
maybe don't have as significant issues as Amelia does.
Okay.
But she's just sort of in a different bucket there, where she's
I
having
see.
more issues than the typical child, and it's progressing
Yes.
out of them at a much slower pace.
Nice, gotcha. That makes perfect sense. Yay! Well,
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah, very welcome. I
that's-
don't have any other appointments today, so if you have
Oh.
more questions, I'm happy to
Hey,
talk to you as long as
I
you
wish
need.
I wish I did have more questions. I don't know what else to ask. I think you did a thorough job of going over everything.
Okay, I will give you also, you'll
Thank
get my
you.
business card on the way out, so
Okay.
please call or email myself
Okay.
or Monisa if you
Okay.
have any questions, and we'll be
Thank
happy
you
to
so